Today, up to 176 million Americans woke up, walked into their kitchens, turned on the faucet, and poured a glass of tap water that the federal government just decided it no longer needs to regulate.
Yeah, it is a really striking reality.
It really is. And welcome in, everyone. We are diving into the Daily Tech Reader for Tuesday, June 2, 2026.
I mean, that water regulation story, it perfectly encapsulates what we're looking at today.
Yeah.
Because the rules are just fundamentally shifting underneath us right now.
Right, across almost every sector.
Exactly. And the pace of that shift is just relentless.
Well, our mission today for you, our listeners, is to connect the dots on those shifting rules. We are looking at this massive stack of sources that, on the surface, they seem totally unrelated.
They really do.
Yeah, we've got reports on Middle East peace talks, that new EPA drinking water data you just mentioned, huge shifts in the artificial intelligence market, and even the broadcast engineering for the NBA finals.
Right, which sounds like 4 different shows.
It does. But, okay, let's unpack this, because how do all these things actually connect?
Well, they share a very specific, invisible common thread. We are watching how rapidly changing rules, both in global government policy and, foundational technology, how those are directly dictating your daily life.
Yeah.
We are talking about the geopolitical forces determining what you pay at the gas pump, the regulatory retreat affecting the water coming out of your faucet, and the Silicon Valley architecture deciding what you watch on your screens.
So let's start with the gas pump, because I feel like that brings us right to the macro forces.
Definitely.
Right now, the U.S., Iran, and Israel dynamic is just incredibly fragile. According to the reports, Iran formally suspended peace negotiations with the U.S.
And they didn't just walk away quietly either.
Not at all. They threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz after Israel launched military strikes on Beirut's Dahi district.
Right.
Iran is stating that specific strike constitutes a ceasefire violation.
And to understand the global market reaction to that, we really have to look at the physical geography of the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, it's tiny, right?
It is. It is the ultimate geopolitical choke point. You have this incredibly narrow waterway sitting right between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman.
Okay.
And roughly 20% of the entire world's global oil consumption physically flows through that one narrow passage on tankers.
Wow, 20%.
Yeah. So when Iran even threatens to close it, it sends a shockwave through the supply chain.
Which explains the prices.
Exactly. Crude prices immediately pushed higher in Tuesday trading because buyers are just, they're pricing in the risk of a supply freeze.
The diplomacy happening behind the scenes to manage that risk is fascinating, and honestly, it's highly contradictory.
It's a mess.
Yeah. I mean, according to the sources, President Trump asked Israel to hold off on striking Beirut, specifically stating no Israeli troops would enter the city.
Right.
And Israel did pause that specific planned strike on the capital. But then Prime Minister Netanyahu issued a separate statement insisting that Israeli forces would continue operating in southern Lebanon exactly as planned.
Right, to meet their security objectives.
Yes.
And I think that just highlights the mechanical limits of foreign leverage.
What do you mean?
Well, you have the White House attempting to de-escalate specific, high-profile targets to keep broader regional peace talks alive.
Right, keeping things calm.
Right. But meanwhile, Allied leadership maintains their sovereign military objectives on the ground. It requires this intense, constant renegotiation of boundaries.
And then you look at Iran's posture. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi put out a very public warning that Lebanon is fully included in the ceasefire framework.
Which is a huge claim.
Yeah, and that any breach by the U.S. or Israel on one front is treated as a violation across all active theaters.
Right.
But then I'm looking at a top story archive in our sources that says there is a tentative U.S.-Iran agreement specifically on keeping the Strait of Hormuz open.
Yeah, and this is exactly how modern statecraft functions. It's the classic diplomatic dual track.
Okay.
You have the public, hardline posturing from figures like Araghchi. And that serves a domestic purpose, right? It projects strength and solidarity to regional allies.
Makes sense.
But behind closed doors, you have these pragmatic back-channel agreements like ensuring the oil keeps flowing through Hormuz.
Because they have to.
Exactly. Both sides understand that closing the strait would trigger a catastrophic global economic event that just wouldn't benefit either party's long-term survival.
So when diplomacy fails in Beirut, the numbers spin faster on the pump when you fill up your car this afternoon.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a Jenga tower where pieces just fall. I think it's more like a highly pressurized hydraulic system.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. Like a valve gets pinched in the Middle East, and the pressure instantly blows a gasket at your local gas station.
Yeah.
The sources note that gas prices are approaching $5 a gallon in several U.S. regions.
Which hurts.
It really hurts. And there is a real political flashpoint hidden in those numbers. Analysis shows that federal and state gas taxes account for up to 17 cents of every single dollar consumers pay at the pump. Yeah. But beyond the wallet, the human toll of this pressure system is devastating. Human rights organizations report at least 865 confirmed civilian deaths in Iran since hostilities resumed in February.
And the economic anxiety you feel at the pump is just directly tethered to all this international instability.
Yeah.
And that external economic pressure, it feeds right into a domestic political pressure cooker.
Oh, absolutely.
We are looking at a nation sprinting toward the midterm elections in an environment of extreme friction.
Yeah, November 3 is just 5 months away. All 435 House seats and 35 Senate seats are in play.
Everything is on the line.
Everything.
Yeah.
Both parties are pouring massive investments into competitive races, like the main Democratic Senate primary, which is drawing major national attention right now after a wave of progressive endorsements.
And in the shadow of those midterms, you are seeing significant operational gridlock within the government itself.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Take the concept of agency independence, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, the FHFA.
Right, they oversee the massive secondary mortgage market.
Exactly. We're seeing its director, Bill Pult, emerge as this unexpectedly independent voice.
How so?
He is actively pushing back on the Trump administration's White House housing priorities.
Really?
Yeah, and it's drawing attention on Capitol Hill because it demonstrates that the executive branch isn't just this monolith.
Right, they aren't all in lockstep.
Right. Agencies have their own statutory mandates that don't always align with the Oval Office.
And you see that exact same friction over at the Department of Justice regarding the border.
Oh, yeah.
The DOJ just announced they are abiding by a court ruling that completely blocks a $1.776 billion fund meant for victims of alleged government weaponization.
Just totally frozen.
Yeah. The DOJ strongly disagrees with the pause, but they are complying with the court's injunction, while the White House tries to pursue entirely separate legislation to fund IC and the Border Patrol.
It's so messy.
It is. And while all this high-level legal wrestling is happening in Washington, federal authorities down on the border just uncovered a 2,000-foot underground drug smuggling tunnel connecting Mexico to a U.S. entry point.
2,000 feet.
And it's not just a dirt hole either. It has advanced electrical lighting, structural supports, full ventilation systems.
It is an incredible feat of illicit engineering, and it's one of the longest ever found.
Okay, wait, I have to push back on this.
Sure.
You're describing a government where agencies are fighting the White House and courts are freezing billion-dollar DOJ funds.
Right.
If the government is operating with this much friction, how are federal authorities successfully executing complex multi-agency sting operations to uncover a 2,000-foot, highly engineered cartel tunnel?
That's a great question.
Like, how does anything actually get done?
Because the government isn't a single machine. It is thousands of separate machines running simultaneously. Think of it like a massive commercial aircraft, where the navigation system, the engine controls, and the cabin lighting are all wired to completely different computer networks created decades apart.
Right. They don't even talk to each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The ground-level operators, like the federal agents running seismic sensors and surveillance on the border, they can execute their specific, localized mission perfectly.
While Washington fights.
Right. But the macro-level policy, the billion-dollar funding mechanisms, and the grand legislative strategies, those are trapped in the courts and the political gridlock.
So if the government is fundamentally gridlocked on these macro-level issues, what happens when it legally withdraws from regulating something inside your own home?
Yeah, this is huge.
That brings us to tap water. The Trump EPA has formally repealed federal limits on 4 specific types of PFAS in drinking water, and they've announced delays in compliance deadlines for 2 others.
And for context for our listeners, PFAS are widely known as forever chemicals because their carbon-fluorine bonds are so incredibly strong that they do not break down naturally in the environment or in the human body.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And the immediate reaction to this repeal is heavy litigation. Environmental groups, including Earth Justice and the Environmental Working Group, are suing the EPA.
On what grounds?
They are citing anti-backsliding provisions in the Safe Drinking Water Act. The legal argument there is that once a federal safety standard is established to protect human health, a subsequent administration cannot legally weaken it.
But the scale of the problem is what makes this so urgent. I mean, according to the new EPA testing data released in our sources, 176 million Americans are currently drinking tap water contaminated with PFAS.
Over half the country.
Yeah, that is 4 million more people than previously documented. And the regulatory rollback is creating this massive financial puzzle.
How so?
Well, there are hundreds of local water utilities eligible for up to $13.6 billion in settlement funds from chemical manufacturers like 3M and DuPont. But the deadlines to claim these funds are looming June 30 and July 30.
What's fascinating here is the absolute paradox of the situation.
Yeah.
You have water utilities that are legally entitled to billions of dollars to clean up their infrastructure.
Which they desperately need.
Right. But because the federal standard dictating what actually constitutes clean water has just been erased, they don't know what metric they're supposed to engineer their new filtration systems to meet.
It's exactly like winning a massive gift card to completely renovate your house, but the city just tore up the building code.
That's a perfect analogy.
You have the money, but you have absolutely no idea what you're actually required to fix.
Exactly.
So what does a consumer do? The health experts in our sources are telling people not to wait on the government.
Yeah, they have to take it into their own hands.
They are directing consumers to buy reverse osmosis and activated carbon home filtration systems because they are the only consumer-level technologies proven to force water through membranes tight enough to catch those forever chemicals.
The burden of safety is being shifted entirely away from the federal framework and placed directly onto the shoulders of the individual consumer.
Yeah.
But nature abhors a vacuum.
Oh.
Where government regulation retreats, private sector technology rushes in.
So if the government rips up the safety standards for drinking water, who actually checks the water?
Right.
The answer isn't a who, it's a what. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, this part is wild.
Municipalities are turning to cutting-edge artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
The EPA's rollback has sparked massive interest from local governments in AI-powered water quality monitoring platforms.
So they're just bypassing the federal government.
Completely.
Yeah.
These systems use optical sensors and machine learning to detect contamination anomalies in real time, completely independently of whatever the federal rulebook says today.
AI is stepping into the innovation void. I mean, we have moved so far beyond chatbots.
Oh, yeah.
AI is becoming the foundational infrastructure for highly regulated, high-slugs industries. Just look at the capital flowing into these spaces.
Give me an example.
Solstice, a pharmaceutical AI startup, just raised $21 million.
Wow.
They are using AI to process the incredibly dense compliance documents required for FDA drug advertising approvals.
Oh, that takes forever normally.
Exactly. It cuts the time it takes to get a pharmaceutical campaign legally cleared down to a fraction.
And a company called Delupa just closed a $47 million Series C.
Yeah, I saw that.
They use AI to extract and structure financial data from SEC filings. Instead of an analyst manually reading a 200-page earnings transcript to find specific revenue metrics, the AI structures that data instantly for institutional investors.
It's changing everything.
It really is. Even in retail, analysts at MarketBeat flagged Williams-Sonoma as the retail sector's strongest long-term AI play.
Williams-Sonoma?
Really? Yeah. They aren't just using basic recommendation algorithm. They are using advanced predictive AI to manage global supply chain inventory and deliver hyper-personalized marketing based on their premium customer base's historical data.
But this reliance on artificial intelligence raises a fundamental structural question.
What's that?
As AI becomes our new baseline infrastructure, monitoring the safety of our water, clearing our medicine, analyzing our financial markets, predicting our supply chains, who is regulating the AI companies themselves?
Right. If AI is the new regulator, who is policing the police?
Exactly.
And the answer is the federal government is trying to, but it's getting very complicated.
Very.
The DOJ has officially launched an antitrust inquiry into the AI industry. They are specifically targeting the competitive practices between the frontier AI labs that build the models and the massive cloud providers that rent out the computing power necessary to run them.
And it's not just the feds.
No. Meanwhile, at the state level, Florida has become the very first state to sue OpenAI over ChatGPT safety failures, citing harm to consumers.
And while the legal and antitrust pressures mount from the government, the underlying technological landscape is shifting beneath the major proprietary players anyway.
Yes, the open source movement is gaining incredible ground.
It really is.
The tracking data from June 2026 shows that open-weight AI models, from companies like Meta and Mistral, are now matching, or in some cases, exceeding proprietary closed systems on key enterprise benchmarks.
Just to clarify for a moment, when we talk about weights in AI, we are talking about the learned parameters of the neural network.
The actual math.
Right, the actual mathematical core of how the AI makes decisions. A closed model, like what OpenAI traditionally offers, keeps those weights hidden in a black box. You just rent access to it.
Okay.
But an open weight model allows developers to download the core mathematics, self-host the model on their own private servers, and fine-tune it for their specific corporate needs without sending their proprietary data back to a big tech company.
Which is a massive competitive advantage for enterprise security.
Huge.
So I have to ask you, if these open weight models are catching up in performance and offering greater privacy for free, and the DOJ is investigating the big closed models for antitrust over how they use cloud computing while states are suing them for safety, aren't the giant proprietary AI labs fighting a two-front war right now?
Oh, absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, what you are describing is the classic, ruthless life cycle of breakthrough technology.
How does that usually play out?
Well, phase one, the innovation completely outpaces the law. The builders operate with zero friction.
Like the Wild West.
Exactly. Phase two, the technology proves its worth, embeds itself into legacy systems, and becomes indispensable to society, like we are seeing with the water utilities.
Right.
And then phase three, which is exactly where we are right now, the legal and competitive realities crash down. The major AI labs are facing federal regulatory scrutiny from above and open source commoditization from below.
It is a heavy, complex landscape. We've gone from geopolitical choke points in the Middle East to fractured federal funding to forever chemicals in the tap and into the AI antitrust crosshairs.
That's a lot to process.
It is. With the DOJ knocking on doors and the EPA pulling back, where do millions of Americans go to just look away? Sports. But as we look at the headlines, technology is completely rewriting the rules of our escapism, too.
Yeah, even the spectacle isn't immune to the tech revolution.
So let's set the stage with a quick weather note, because the climate affects the games.
True.
Despite a brutal heat wave across the Gulf Coast right now, we're talking a heat index hitting 105 degrees Fahrenheit in places like Texas and Louisiana. It is actually a very quiet start to the Atlantic hurricane season.
Which is surprising.
It is. 2 days in, 0 active systems. The meteorologists credit this to the strengthening El Niño conditions, which create upper-level wind shear that basically tears apart hurricanes before they can form.
Though the forecasters do explicitly note that the most historically active period is August through October.
Right.
So the relief on the coast might be temporary.
True. But the sports world itself is roaring. In hockey, Carolina Hurricanes goaltender Frederik Andersen is on a historic MVP-caliber run.
He's been unbelievable.
He really has. He's putting his team 1 win away from the Stanley Cup final, and analysts say his specific statistical dominance is actually forcing NHL front offices to recalculate how they financially value the goaltending position in the salary cap era. And in soccer, Team Brazil has officially landed in New Jersey, joining dozens of international squads converging on the U.S. for the massive 2026 FIFA World Cup buildup.
And in tennis, I mean, Serena Williams is making an unprecedented comeback at the HSBC Championships in London after nearly 4 years away from the court.
And that announcement alone triggered an immediate fierce bidding war among global streaming platforms fighting for the exclusive broadcast rights to her return match.
It is commercially massive.
Huge. But the absolute crown jewel in sports this week is the NBA Finals.
Oh,
Game 1 tips off tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern on ABC. It's the New York Knicks making their first finals appearance since 1999.
Though their backup center, Mitchell Robinson, is listed as questionable.
Yeah, which could be a factor. But they're taking on the Spurs. And at Media Day, Victor Wembanyama delivered this incredibly poetic quote.
What did he say?
He told reporters, "Job's not finished at all. My love of basketball predates my memories."
Wow. It's a profound, almost literary statement from a young athlete carrying the entire weight of a franchise on his shoulders.
I totally geeked out over it. But here is where the tech comes rushing back in.
Right.
This finals broadcast is going to be a technical milestone for the television industry. It is the first sports championship broadcast entirely in 1080p high dynamic range, utilizing a full IP 2110 transmission workflow on ABC.
Which, in plain English, means that instead of relying on massive traditional baseband coaxial cables to send the video from the cameras to the production truck, they're sending uncompressed, pristine video and audio over high-speed internet protocols.
Right.
It allows for infinitely more camera angles, faster replays, and just a visual depth that traditional broadcasts simply cannot match.
Plus, to capture a different audience, ESPN is running a Pat McAfee alternate broadcast live from Madison Square Garden for Game 3, featuring raw, unfiltered commentary with Quentin Richardson and Kendrick Perkins.
Right. Totally changing the vibe.
So I have to push back a little on this massive tech injection.
Okay.
With the IP workflows, the streaming rights bidding wars, and the personality-driven altcasts, are we losing the purity of the game itself, or is this just making the spectacle more digestible for a younger audience whose attention is totally fractured?
I think it's fundamentally about survival in the modern media landscape.
Survival.
Yeah. Sports television is desperately trying to reinvent itself. The traditional broadcast format, like two commentators sitting quietly in a booth, is fading, especially with younger demographics who are used to dual screening.
Yeah, everyone's on their phones during the game. Exactly. So the networks are placing massive financial bets on personality-driven alternate coverage combined with hyper-advanced visual tech to keep viewers engaged. The rules of the game on the hardwood remain exactly the same, but the packaging of the spectacle is evolving at light speed to match consumer habits.
And that brings the whole picture perfectly into focus. We started today examining how dual-track diplomacy and military strikes in the Middle East physically pull the levers on the price of gas at your local station.
Right.
We watched as domestic political friction and the rollback of federal environmental standards force consumers to rely on household reverse osmosis filters and municipal AI platforms just to guarantee a clean glass of drinking water.
Yeah.
And we saw how that same underlying technological revolution is completely rewriting the very way we consume our media, structure our financial data, and watch the NBA Finals.
The connective tissue for you, the listener, is realizing that these aren't just abstract, distant headlines happening in a vacuum.
No, they really aren't. These shifting rules dictate the physical water from your faucet, the actual money in your wallet, and the media playing on your screens. The rulebook is changing across the board, and it is changing everything around you, which leaves us with a final, vital question to consider.
What's the question?
If we are increasingly relying on artificial intelligence to act as our safety monitor and structural foundation when traditional government regulations retreat, like we are seeing with municipal drinking water and pharmaceutical approvals, what happens when those AI systems themselves, which are currently facing massive state-level safety lawsuits and federal antitrust probes, become the new, entirely unregulated infrastructure that we completely depend on?
That is exactly why we do these deep dives. You have to keep questioning the architecture of the world around you, especially when someone keeps trying to rewrite the rulebook while you're still figuring out how to play the game. Thank you for joining us today, everyone. Keep digging, and we will catch you on the next one.